members, we are now live on YouTube and gone to my mobile. It's 18:59, so we'll formally start the meeting when it turns 7 o'clock. Thank you. Good evening, members, and good evening to anyone who's watching this meeting of full council on YouTube. We are streaming it live, 17th of September. And the first item of business is chairman for this evening's meeting. So do I have someone who will propose a council, please?
Thank you, Mr. Payne. Councillor David Henderson. I'd like to propose Councillor Alice Collinson.
Councillor, do I have a seconder for that? The seconder, please, can you unmute yourself, please? Councillor Alan Vincent. Vincent, I think there might be a problem with your headset.
Okay. As we can't hear him, should I second him? Should I second Alice? I'll second Alice Collinson. It's Councillor Lamara now.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor.
Are you picking me up now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. It's the headset then, I'll have to not do it out.
It is. Thank you, Councillor Vincent. We've had it seconded by Councillor Lamara, and you will now see on your screen there will be a voting bar. So please, can you vote? We'll give you just over a minute to vote, please. Thank you. And for voting, we have 38 for and none against and no abstentions. So, Councillor Alice Collinson, you are elected to chair this meeting. Thank you, members.
Thank you, councillors, and good evening. The next item on is the apologies for absence. Apologies for absence we have so far been received from Councillors Bridge, Holding, Ibison and Minto. Are there any other apologies?
I have an apology from Councillor Fairbanks. She'll do her best to get here, but she's feeling unwell, so she may have to apologise.
Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong is still trying to log in, technical problems. Hopefully you'll be able to join very soon.
It's the confirmation of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to consider this. Can I please have a proposal that the minutes for the council meeting held on the 5th of March 2020 be approved as a correct record?
Happy to propose those minutes, Madam Chairman.
Is there a seconder for that?
Happy to second it, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Does anyone want to comment on the factual accuracy of the minutes or propose an amendment?
It's about tomorrow again.
With those members present at the 5th of March meeting, please cast their votes using the voting facility that will shortly be visible on your screens. The proposal is that the minutes of the meeting held on 5th of March 2020 be approved as a correct record.
No abstentions, none against. One abstention. So 44, 1 abstention. Somebody. 40 and
1 abstention.
Yeah.
The minutes for the meeting held on the 5th of March 2020 are confirmed. 44 and 1 abstention.
Madam Chairman, may I ask on a point of order, if one was not present at the next council meeting, should one abstain or just not vote?
Yeah. You just don't vote if you weren't at the meeting.
Can I please also have a proposal for the minutes of the council meeting held on the 12th of March 2020 be approved as a correct record?
Happy to propose those, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a second to that proposal?
Second it, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Does anyone want to comment on the factual accuracy of the minutes or propose an amendment?
Voting there.
So we're now voting.
Yeah, you need to say the voting marker.
Yeah.
Ask them to vote. The voting marker.
Right. Am I on this? With those members present at the 12th of March meeting, please cast your votes using the voting facility that will shortly be visible on your screens. The proposal is that the minutes for the meeting held on the 12th of March 2020 be approved as a correct record.
Alison.
The minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of March 2020. 31 for and 2 abstentions. Next item, 4 declarations of interest. Do any members or officers have any interest to declare on any item included on the agenda? No. The next item is announcements. Item 5, announcements. I have one announcement. The Mayor-elect, whose term of office will be 12th of November to 2020 to May 2022, is Councillor Andrea Kay. The Deputy Mayor-elect is Councillor Howard Ballard. I have not been advised of any other announcements this evening. This is an opportunity for the leaders, the deputy leader, members of the cabinet, a chairman of a committee or a chief executive to make an announcement if you so wish.
Madam Mayor, it's Councillor Kay. Can I say something, please?
Yes, Councillor Kay.
The North West Reserve Forces and Cadets Association, Wyre has been recognised for the Silver Award for the long-term commitment to the armed forces and community. So I'd like to thank the officers involved, which was Paul Deacon and other officers, and I'm pleased to say that we've got the Silver Award, so it's quite an exciting time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kay, and congratulations. If there are no further announcements, the next item is public questions and statements. However, no such questions or statements have been submitted. The next item is questions on notice from councillors. Again, no such questions have been submitted. The next item is a report on Treasury Management Activity 2019 to 2020. Councillor Alan Vincent.
Madam Chairman, The Treasury Management Report comes to both Cabinet and full Council from time to time. This report has been before Council twice previously, not this exact report, but updates obviously, and this is the final report for the year. There was no new borrowing during the course of the financial year. The main reason for that was that we didn't want to borrow, and secondly, that the Public Works Lending Board borrowing rate went up by 1% to try and discourage those councils who were rushing to borrow to buy shopping centres in the main, something we didn't want to do.
No. Is there a seconder for the proposal?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Happy to second that.
No. Are there any comments, questions or amendments? No. No comments or questions or amendments?
So then there's no debate. So the members
No.
cast the vote.
No debate. So would members please cast their votes using the voting facility that will shortly be visible on your screens? Now, the recommendation is approved. The vote is unanimous. We will now move on to agenda item 9, which is a report on Treasury Management Policy and Annual Investment Strategy. Councillor Alan Vincent, the report and propose the recommendation, please.
Chairman, again, this is a regular report that members will be now used to seeing. It seems a long time ago, but the Treasury Management Policy report that's before you at 3.1 in any event first was passed by Cabinet on the 25th of March 2020 and would normally have come to a full council fairly quickly thereafter, but obviously because of the pandemic that hasn't happened and it's only got here today. The second part of the recommendations in this report are to approve the variations to the standard Treasury management policies and practices that we would normally adopt. And the main reason for those variations, if members have looked at it, it's fairly obvious, is to provide the council the opportunity to have short-term borrowing to provide liquidity should we be faced with any emergency that the pandemic throws at us that we aren't already equipped to do. So far, fortunately, we have used our own reserves to spend quite a lot of money helping the community through the pandemic, but we want to have the facility to make sure that we can cope with anything that it might throw at us now or in the next few months. Hopefully it won't.
Is there a second for the
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'd like to second that.
Are there any comments, questions or amendments? No one has indicated to speak, is that correct?
Okay. So that's doesn't have to propose it, so we'll know you got to vote on it.
So the recommendations are approved. The next item is a report on Lancashire Combined Authority.
We're not supposed to vote on it.
Councillor Henderson, would you introduce the report and propose the recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As the decision at the council meeting of December 2015, which is 4.4 of the background on page 76, was not to support a move to a combined authority with an elected mayor.
Can I interrupt you? I do apologise. Unfortunately, there was one little step that we missed out there, because after no one wanted to comment or speak, there should have been a vote on that item. I do apologise for that. So, members, you'll be voting on item 9, and the voting bar will appear shortly. Apologies for that. Thank you.
No. The recommendation, item 9, are approved. We have 40 votes for and 2 no votes. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I can't hear anything. Am I supposed to be speaking, Councillor Collinson?
Sorry, I couldn't hear
I
that.
think it's item 10, isn't it?
Is it, Councillor Beavers, is it item 10 you wish to speak on?
Yes, Councillor Collinson.
Okay, I shall introduce it now.
I'd like to speak first.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
I'm sorry, Councillor Collinson. Is Councillor Henderson going to speak first? Yeah, okay.
Yes. Yes. Councillor Hendon, would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendations, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Take 2. As the decision at the council meeting of December 2015, which is 4.4 of the background on page 76, was not to support a move to combined authority with an elected mayor. Times have now changed, and as I have attended district and Lancashire leaders meetings since becoming leader of Wyre, and listened to and contributed to discussions at these meetings. Whilst I have cross-party agreement to put Wyre's case forward, this report, if agreed on, will allow me to follow the recommendations at 3.1 and 3.2 on Wyre's behalf. So, Madam Chairman, I move the recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there a seconder for the proposals?
I'd like to second it, Madam Chairman, and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. Are there any comments, questions or amendments? We have Councillor Beavers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Lancashire Combined Authority, the idea that we should be changing the way we serve the people of Lancashire in the middle of a pandemic that is racing towards a second wave as we speak is absolutely bonkers. I'm finding it hard to comprehend how anybody would think that at a time of national crisis, it is the right time to dissolve our local district councils along with Lancashire County Council. It has been inspiring to witness the things that Lancashire County Council and Wyre Council have achieved in the last 6 months to protect the residents of Wyre. The staff have been amazing, and I would like to publicly thank each and every one of them today. The staff of Wyre and LCC, along with the people of Fleetwood, have worked as a team, and they have been the most amazing team, working with empathy and commitment for the people of Wyre in one of our darkest hours. The R rate is rising again in Lancashire. The second wave is nearly upon us, and we must get ready to protect the residents of Wyre once more. But instead of putting the people of Lancashire first, the Conservative leader of the County Council has decided that now is the time to create a combined authority. He wants to create a Conservative utopia that will be Northwest Lancashire. He has done his sums and he thinks Northwest Lancashire will forever be blue. So what if the second wave is coming? So what if Lancashire has not got enough tests for the people who need them? So what if Lancashire's R rate is rising again? He wants his Conservative utopia with his Conservative mayor, and he wants it now. I ask that this council refuses to support this insane race to change the map of Lancashire. Our residents deserve better. We should be bringing uncertainty and confusion. We should be helping our communities to cope through the coming days, not pulling the rug from under our residents' feet and that of our staff. The very people who have helped to carry us through the first wave and no doubt will be carrying us through the second wave. I ask that we reject these rush proposals and carry out some properly costed and planned consultations with the residents of Wyre. Let us continue to put the people of Wyre first until this is over and we are better able to cope with the implications of COVID-19 and a possible no-deal Brexit. I ask that we reject the recommendations 3.1 and 3.2. In the last 6 months, the officers of Wyre and LCC have done an amazing job supporting our communities. None of us have any understanding of what the future might bring in the next 2 years. So let's do this properly. Do this with our residents and for our residents and not for our own political gains. Thank you.
Councillor Fail, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Para 3.2 recommends that the Council receive a further report on the detailed combined authority proposal in due course to attain Wyre Council's consent to the establishment of the Lancashire Combined Authority. Now, I'm fine with progressing discussions on a combined authority, provided that doesn't involve limiting the scope to a single option. But it would appear that behind the scenes, discussions have already limited the options. Indeed, the proposition for local government reorganisation in Lancashire produced by Lancashire County Council states, and I quote, "We are proposing to establish 3 unitary authorities, North West Lancashire, Central Lancashire and East Pennine Lancashire, and a mayoral combined authority for the whole of Lancashire." The single option business case paper makes no reference to considering anything other than 3 unitary authorities. communities, and it makes no reference to assessing different geographical groupings. Where are the options for 2, 3 and 4 unitaries? Where are the geographical grouping options? Where is the option for no mayor? Where is the status quo option? So discuss by all means, but let's not get ahead of ourselves and let's not make our minds up before analysing all the available options. Instead of rushing this, we need clear thinking, and perhaps, as Councillor Beavers suggests, the middle of the pandemic is not the best time to obtain that clarity of thought. Certainly, it would appear that clarity of thought is currently absent if the single option proposal is anything to go by. Let's undertake thorough discussions, formally review options, and do things in an ordered fashion. But let's not proceed with a fait accompli proposition before us. That simply is unacceptable and will only lead to disappointment further down the line. When we do all that is a moot point. But the priority for both Lancashire County Council and Wyre should be to maintain its grip on the current crisis and continue with the great work that Wyre Council and Lancashire County Council have been doing to support residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beavers. Are there any more questions from councillors? Comments or?
No.
No?
So Councillor Henderson.
Now, the proposer of the recommendations, would you please respond to the debate?
I reserve my right to speak, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Vincent should speak next, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Vincent, would you please respond?
Thank you for that, Madam Chairman. First of all, this is the biggest U-turn in the history of mankind. The Labour Party have supported this from right the way through, and to talk about we want it because there'll be a Conservative mayor is the biggest load of claptrap I've ever heard. She might have not noticed that her friend, former councillor Grunshaw, has won every police and crime commissioner election since that was instituted. So the Conservatives are very much second favourites in that particular race, and remain so. This isn't about party politics. This is about doing what's right for the people of Lancashire, and to try and bring in a red herring of saying that it will in some way hinder the brilliant work that's being done by both Wyre and County Council is again a nonsense, and to a degree it's objectionable, frankly, because they know that we will continue to do that work, and that the combined authority application will take a very long time to go through the process. So it's a complete red herring to throw that in. It won't have any impact at all on what we do or what the county do. So that's rubbish. It's a complete U-turn. Virtually every Lancashire Labour district leader has supported this in principle. And in terms of unitaries, and we're not talking about unitaries tonight, we're talking about the combined authority only, and the multi-millions of pounds that will bring to Lancashire, and the quicker the better in my view, because post-COVID, boy will we need it to support the economy. That is what we're doing here. We're not talking about unitaries, and it's also a fact in any event that the unitary proposal put forward by Lancashire County Council is supported by the Labour leader of Preston Council, it's supported by the Labour leader of Blackburn Council, and it's supported by a whole range of councils across Lancashire. So this is just nonsense, and it should be binned.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson, as the proposer of the recommendations, would you please respond to the debate?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, once again, Councillor Beavers decided that she's going to have a go at Lancashire County Council, but she's going to do it through the council chamber at Wyre. I find it rather bad that she starts off very good to say how well Wyre have done during the present COVID climate, and we have done, but then to start to latch it on to Lancashire County Council this, Lancashire County Council that, Councillor Jeff Driver this. Well, Councillor Jeff Driver isn't in Wyre. Lancashire County Council aren't in Wyre. We do have some county councillors here. And this is a Wyre proposal that we're talking about. Councillor Beavis, you can shake your head as much as you want. You've obviously not read the report. The report is about a combined authority. It is not about a unitary at all. It is combined authority, and that is all it is. Unitary is a long way down the road. As usual, you've got your facts mixed up again. Obviously, the cross-party support that Councillor Fayle gave me is now not going to continue. Well, that be it. But a combined authority, when we eventually get there, with or without an elected mayor with limited powers, will bring in extra money into this part of Wyre. I only bother about Wyre. The rest of Lancashire can look after itself in the first instance. Then if I need to join with Lancashire at some point in the future, we shall have a look at it. And as I've always said, I will bring all the facts back to the council. So Lorraine, keep shaking your head as much as you want. You've got your facts wrong. You must be reading the wrong report, because this is only about a combined authority and it is not about unitary. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
No.
That concludes the debate. Would members please cast their votes using the voting facility that will shortly be visible on your screens? Thank you. We have 31 for, 9 against and 2 abstentions. Therefore, the recommendations are approved. The next item is a report on an appointment to a committee. Councillor Henderson, would you please introduce the report and the recommendations, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The recommendation is before the members at 3.1, and that is that Councillor George of the Wyre Alliance Group be appointed to the Planning Committee in place of Councillor Williams.
Is there a second for the proposal?
Second that, Madam Chairman.
Are there any comments, questions or amendments? No.
Does it just go straight to the vote?
Yeah. No debate. Right.
Okay, Sarah.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Would members please cast their votes using the voting facility that will shortly be visible on your screens? The recommendation has been approved. Unanimous. The next item is a report on the appointment to an outside body. Councillor Henderson, would you introduce the report and propose the recommendations, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The recommendation is before members at 3.1, and that is that Councillor Alice Collinson be appointed as one of the Council's 2 representatives on the Garstang Town Trust in place of Councillor Johnny Leach until the next elections in May 2021. And I should just like to thank Councillor Leach for representing Wyre Council on the Town Trust. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Sorry, just a very minor, May 2021, the date's May 2023 in the report. Thank you.
I stand corrected.
Is there a seconder for the proposal?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm happy to second that.
Are there any comments, questions or amendments? Would members please cast their votes using the voting facility that will shortly be visible on your screens? The recommendation is approved. It is unanimous. The next item is a report on constitution amendments. Councillor Henderson, would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendations, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to propose the recommendations 3.1 to 3.4 for the alterations to the amendments to the Constitution. I don't propose to go through them. Hopefully members have read them. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Is there a seconder for the proposals?
Yeah, in that case, I'll second that, Madam Chairman.
Now.
Are there any comments, questions or amendments?
We've got councillors first.
We have Councillor Rob Fail.
Duncan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Prior to April 2017, any member could call in a planning application to committee for determination. It was a retrograde step disenfranchising councillors. It wrongly stopped councillors calling in applications of concerns to them. Pleasingly, the report before us recognises the blunder that was made in April 2017, but rather than repeal that change and lose face with a complete U-turn, we are left with the muddled thinking before us. It may be better than the ridiculous situation we currently find ourselves in, but the suggested change is simply not sufficiently thought through. Para 5.7 of the report correctly acknowledges that a planning application sometimes has an impact that is wider than just the ward within which the application lies. Yet then bizarrely tries to suggest that the limit of that impact is adjoining wards. Now, depending on the ward, it may be there are as few as 2 and as many as 7 adjoining wards, meaning that residents will have varying abilities to get an application called in where they live in Wyre. Furthermore, I can see many buildings or sites where any of the 50 councillors may legitimately have cause to call in a planning application. Should the interest in Fleetwood Pier site be confined to councillors from Pharos, Warren and Mount Woods? No, heritage affects us all. Should the interest in a inappropriately placed fast food establishment in Victorian Norcross ward be confined to councillors from that ward and its adjoining wards? No, that has an ability to affect many other wards, Mount Ward for instance. Should the interest in the destruction of green space in Carlton be confined to councillors from that ward and its adjoining wards? No, the loss of dwindling open space should be of concern for us all. For the sake of simplicity, clarity, fairness and equality, I therefore submit the following amendment to para 3.4, which should be coming up on screen in a few seconds. This effectively gives all councillors the ability to call in any application, as was the case prior to April 2017. The amendment should be coming up on screen now.
Thank you, Councillor Fales. So I'm taking it that you are proposing a formal amendment, which, can we see it on the screen, please?
Yeah, it's on.
Is it on? It's there. Right, I can need to see it. Thank you, Councillor Fale. I've read the proposed amendment and can confirm that it is a valid amendment. It doesn't negate the wording, because as members will know, for the Constitution, you can insert or delete words as long as it doesn't negate the intent of the wording or the motion, which in this case it is correct. So if it is an acceptable amendment, it would need to be seconded.
I'd like to second that.
Yeah.
As we've had an amendment and it's been proposed and seconded, members, you've now got the chance to discuss the amendment first. Councillor Fale, as you proposed the amendment and Councillor Beevers, you seconded it, you've got the right to speak. And then any other members can speak on the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The proposal is in front of you. Happy to hear the thoughts of other councillors on this matter. I think I've said most of what I need to say at this moment in time. Thank you.
Councillor Beevers, do you wish to speak on the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, please. As some of you,
Councillor Beevers.
thank you. As some of you will know, I've been around for some time. So back in the day, I was approached by a resident of Poulton. She lived directly across the road from the Civic Centre and next door to a derelict pub. A planning application was put forward to knock down the pub and to put some flats next door to her property. Her garden would then be overlooked, which wasn't the case when the pub was there. She asked her local Wyre councillors to call this matter in so that the planning committee would look at it. They refused. She then, in desperation, approached me. I did what I believed was right thing to do and asked the planning committee to look at this issue. The then leader of the council was absolutely incensed by my actions because the planning application was on his patch and he was the councillor that had refused to call it in. So for his revenge, I do believe, he took away the ability to call in any planning application within Wyre from most of the councillors. The McDonald's planning application on Morrison's car park was called in by the ward councillors. But how many councillors were contacted by the residents about this application and had to explain that they weren't allowed to speak for them? I know I was asked. We all know that this is going to be a traffic nightmare for the people of Fleetwood and the shoppers at Morrison's. People will do their weekly shop and never be seen again. Anyone who visits Morrison's on a Friday afternoon will know that once you've entered Morrison's car park, getting out again is not for the faint-hearted. Myself and other councillors should have been able to represent our residents on this matter. But with this amendment, most of us would still be unable to do so. It affects Fleetwood and other areas, and we are all elected as Wyre Borough councillors. Building houses on Fleetwood Beach on the old pier site all Fleetwood councillors should always be allowed to speak on these issues, but this takes it away from all of us. So I ask, I'm sorry, I've lost my thread, guys. I won't be second. Please be patient. All councillors should have the right to represent all of the people of their towns. I ask that this council accepts this amendment in the spirit that it is given so that all can better represent the residents of Wyre. I do apologise. I lost my thread. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Vincent, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, Madam Chairman, I apologise. Madam Chairman, the one thing Councillor Beavers is correct about is that when taking decisions that affect the whole of the borough, we are all Wyre councillors who must think and make decisions on behalf of all residents of the borough. But we are also ward councillors. We each have an ever-expanding knowledge of our wards, residents and the issues that they face. Issues that they face. It would be absurd to suggest that a councillor serving Garstang could have the same understanding of Fleetwood as a Pharos ward councillor and vice versa. Planning applications are an issue for ward councillors. Only they have the knowledge and experience to consider representations made by residents and use their judgment to decide if an application should be called in or the grounds that it should be objected to. If the system allowed any resident to contact any councillor and have any application called in without any consideration as to whether this was in the best interest of the ward residents, why would we need councillors to call matters in at all? Why not just allow the public to call applications in themselves? We do not do this as ward councillors serves as a filter to ensure that the planning committee is not bogged down with call-ins of matters that should have been determined by the officers. It also ensures, and the current rules ensure, and the proposed amended rules ensure, that members don't do what Councillor Beavers did, call something in and then leave the residents to it. She is extremely false in what she says when she states that she should have been allowed to speak to McDonald's, because she probably would have called it in and then not turned up. It is clear that the current rules are too restrictive. A planning application in one ward can obviously impact on the residents of a neighbouring ward, and this is why the proposal to amend the Constitution has been made. What will remain the same, however, is that it will be for the ward councillors representing affected residents to call an application in and speak to it. Politics has no place in planning. Every 4 years, residents elect a ward councillor. If they have ward-related issues, they should contact their councillors to seek assistance. All of us are obligated to provide this assistance, regardless of how the resident voted at the election. As such, there is no good reason for any resident to seek the assistance of anyone other than their own councillors. If I were to be contacted by a resident of Tidebarn Ward, for example, I would ask Councillor Colette Birch or Councillor Mackay to contact the resident, but because this is not for me to interfere in their ward, as I do not have their special understanding of it. I would hope that all of you would show their fellow councillors the same respect and courtesy. This amendment is not about whether the rules are fair. It is about whether residents of a certain political persuasion can ignore the outcome of a democratic election and obtain assistance from someone other than their ward councillor when it suits them. It is to politicise planning and to grant themselves the power to call in applications for their supporters who live in one of the many areas fortunate enough not to be represented by Labour. Every single example Councillor Fale gave, Fleetwood Pier, Blackpool Road and the Thornton Cleveland's McDonald's, were or will be called in by the ward councillors, thus proving that the system works and ward councillors are doing their jobs. They do not need the help, if you can call it that, from councillors several miles away. Councillor Beavers makes the point that she should have been allowed to speak to the Cleveland's McDonald's application. However, we'll limit the involvement of members of the public. You cannot then have a situation where there is a free-for-all for any councillor and his dog to turn up and speak about anything they like to because they happen to be elected for somewhere 5 miles down the road. The Wyre Labour group appear to believe that they should be able to use their positions to do favours for their friends and supporters. I believe that politics has no place in planning and urge all members to vote against this amendment. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Moon.
Hi, can you see me?
Madam Mayor, I believe I was next.
Hello, Madam Chairman, who would you like to speak next?
Councillor Moon, please. And then Councillor George.
Thank you. I should be very brief. Councillor Beavers raises questions at the shall we call it training event council meeting, and we said we'd bring something back and change the constitution that would satisfy the problems that she felt she was having over regard to planning committee. Whether you think the proposal that leaders put forward or not is flawed is up to the individual. Personally, I think it's a very reasonable solution to a problem, that the ward councillor can represent their ward and also the adjoining ward. There's no need for it to be spread across the borough. There is no politics in planning, and any councillor can make representation to myself or to my vice chairman, Mr. Howard Ballard. At any time, on any application, we will always consider what the problems are, what the concerns are. There's no need to any drastic change to the constitution. What the leader has proposed is fine and will suffice. I would urge Councillor Fale and Councillor Beavers to withdraw their amendment. It will fall anyway. And just support the leader's recommendation. That's all, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor George.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I actually, Councillor Vincent, Councillor Moon pretty much said exactly what I was going to say, which is I believe this is just so as they can put their own political point across. So but the only thing I am asking is that could we please see the amendment again, because there wasn't enough time to read the amendment properly for some of us that have some visual problems. So in the interest of equality, is it possible we could just see it just another time so as we can actually read it properly and just have a moment to get it in? However, I do agree with Councillor Vincent and Councillor Moon that this is just a political move and there's no politics that belong in planning.
Right, thank you, Councillor George. We're just going to put it up so that people who didn't have a chance to see it last time, we're putting it up for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Are there any other councillors wish to speak on the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, if I may. Madam Chair, sorry.
Councillor Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Fail is correct. The constitution re the planning call-in was last altered in April 2017, but that followed an unnecessary call-in from Councillor Beavers. Councillor Beavers, when she did explain about the call-in at first, got part of it right and quite a bit of it wrong. She actually said the ward councillors were contacted. They weren't. Only one ward councillor was contacted. That was me. The ward councillor that was contacted at first is no longer a councillor. I believe he refused to do anything on it. But that application in Breck Ward had already been called in before the planning committee at 2 previous planning committees on that site, and they were both called in by myself. When the third one came along, that was an alteration to the existing plans, at the time, the then councillor, Ron Sheward, Councillor Beaver's father, he phoned me, not the other councillor, me, and asked if I would call in the resubmission, which I said to him that I would look at and I would possibly do so. The next I knew was that Councillor Beavers had called in the application after being asked by a supporter of the Labour Party to do so without having the courtesy to contact the ward councillor who was trying to do his best to bring this before the committee, and that was myself. This is just a political stunt as such. Party politics has been brought to play, which has no place in planning whatsoever. The alteration to the planning part is perfectly adequate insofar as that if you have a problem with the application, you contact, if in the first place, the ward councillors. It gives you the opportunity, if those ward councillors don't wish to call it in, it then gives the neighbouring one the opportunity to call it in and to speak on it. But in all my experience of planning and my experience of being a councillor, it has always been the done thing that if an application comes in a ward that's not your ward, but it does affect your ward somehow, then you contact the ward councillor concerned and discuss it with them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No. Councillor Ballard? Councillor Ballard, would you, we can't hear you. Can you take off your headset?
Better?
Thank you.
Right. Reference to Morrison's, it was rejected by Wyre Planning, which was called in by the ward councillors. I want to know how much that the Labour councillors would have altered that situation, because it went to the inspectorate and was overruled by the inspectorate. I don't know how much more influence they could have had. We had a situation with Craiglands, which is under Stanner. I spoke to the local councillors in Stanner, told them my feelings because it's my adjoining area, and they called it in, which has got to come through to the planning committee. I also feel that what Michael Vincent is saying is correct. Local councillors do have the concerns of the residents right at their hearts, and the adjoining areas do support it. And I think this is where we're coming to. And I think this is what we're all about. And I think this is a great amendment, fantastic amendment. And all I feel is that, well, the Labourers are just U-boat tubing. They're just showboating. It's disgusting. Bye.
Councillor Councillor Rayner, we can't hear you. Would you switch off your video?
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear you call me. Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say, as a member of the planning committee, I'm just a bit shocked that we're being called political, because I can absolutely categorically state that there is no politics in the planning committee, and I'm saying that as an elected Labour councillor. So I just think it's disgraceful that we're being called political. If anybody wants to come and sit in on the planning committee, they will see that there is no politics in the planning committee. Many times we all vote together, or the group will be split, and some Labour councillors will vote with Conservative councillors, and Conservative councillors will vote with the Labour councillors. There is no politics in the planning committee. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
No one else wished to speak. Councillor Fail, as the proposer of the recommendation, would you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't expecting so much debate, but just to summarise, the current proposal is too restrictive. This amendment effectively gives all councillors the ability to call in any application, as was the case prior to April 2017. So we're only going back to what it was previous. That's what we're suggesting. To answer to the other points, plenty of councillors have an understanding of wards other than their own. You know, one may ask the question, does well, I'll leave that one for you to answer. With regard to Victoria Ward, the planning application that was considered there, well, you know, it may have been called in, and we refer to it having been called in by the ward councillors. Great, but that's not the point. The point was what would happen if they had not called it in. It should be allowed to be called in, not just by those councillors from that ward, but by adjoining councillors. And to be honest, any other one that, you know, I have an understanding of Victoria and Norcross Ward, having lived in Thornton Cleeveys all my life. So I think I've got a pretty good understanding of that, and I should be allowed to call that in, irrespective of whether I live in Victoria Ward and happen to live in one of those adjoining wards. So just to sum up, it's not the mistake that matters, it's how you deal with it and how you learn from it. The retaliation to Councillor Beavers calling in the planning application in Brett Ward was the mistake. How that mistake is dealt with and what has been learnt is to be determined now. Do you go for the halfway house solution proposed in the agenda that is needlessly unclear and unfair and still disenfranchises councillors? Or do you go for the logical, clear and fair solution that is in the best interest of all Wyre residents? Please support this amendment. Thank you.
Yeah. That concludes the debate. Would members please cast their votes on the amendment, the voting facility that will shortly be visible on your screens. You are voting for the amendment.
Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman,
Yes, Henderson.
would you please explain to the whole of the councillors, when you just said the amendment, I have put the amendment onto the constitution. It's an alternative amendment that Councillor Fail has proposed.
Amendment to the motion.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. It does. We have made it very clear on the voting bar that members are being asked to vote for the amendment as just put forward an alternative, and we'll shortly be able to reveal the results. Thank you.
The amendment is lost. It is 8 for and 34 against. And one abstention.
So we now move to the.
So we now move to the original proposal.
Do members wish to have a debate?
Do members wish to have a debate on the amendment itself? Would members please cast their vote using the voting facility that will shortly be visible on your screens? This is the voting amendment.
Just for clarification, you are now voting for the recommendations 3.1 to 3.4 in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. The recommendations are approved of 35 votes for and 8 abstentions. The next item is notices of motion. There are none, so that concludes this evening's meeting. And thank you for your attendance.